My younger sister married my arch-rival, the notorious playboy of Beijing's elite circle, Jing Yechen. Meanwhile, I married Zhang Yan, the crown prince of Beijing's high society, whose heart and mind were always fixated on my sister. 5 years later, Jing Yechen took over the family business and was constantly surrounded by scandals. My sister, bearing the title of Mrs. Jing, spent night after night alone in an empty house, until their marriage eventually reached the point of divorce. In contrast, after getting married, Zhang Yan went abroad to start his own business. Not only did he build an unrivaled commercial empire, but he also made substantial donations to support public welfare causes. That's how I earned the nickname philanthropist extraordinaire among netizens. I saw my sister again when Zhang Yan acquired Jinjiakan Corporation, on the day the company went bankrupt. I visited the luxury villa and found my sister behaving like a madwoman. How come you're the only one by his side without a single rumor? He was determined to marry me and no one else back then. He only settled for you because I turned him down. If I'm miserable, dear sister, you won't get to be happy either. She set the villa ablaze, determined to take us both down with her. When I opened my eyes again, we had been transported back to the day Zhang Yan proposed. Brother Yan, I do. The moment I saw my sister Meng Tian eagerly accept Zhang Yan's proposal, I knew she had also been reborn. This was when Zhang Yan had just bought an island at great expense, inviting everyone to witness his proposal to Meng Tian. The Meng family business was slowly declining, and to prevent the company from going under during his watch, father set his sights on his 2 daughters. Meng Tian has always been a charmer since childhood, delighting her parents with her sweet nature, with her lovely looks, talent for singing and dancing, and outgoing personality. She attracted countless admirers. Among them was Zhang Yan, the crown prince of Beijing's elite circle. Though known for keeping women at arm's length, he went out of his way to get close to Meng Tian. All right, we'll start preparing the wedding right away. That should keep my precious daughter from running off to Zhang Yan's place every single day. Mom, you're teasing me again. With a beaming smile, Mom pulled Meng Tian into her embrace as they began discussing wedding arrangements. Dad sat nearby with adoration written all over his face, but his smile vanished the moment he laid eyes on me. Meng Yan, you will marry Jing Yechen. Caught off guard by the summons, I lowered my head and stammered meekly, the Jing family wants my younger sister. How could I possibly go? Besides, Jing Yechen has disliked me since we were children. If I went, he would definitely. My mother was quite pleased with my reaction. Meng Tian felt the same way. She gently took my hand and reassured me softly, don't worry, sister, the Jing family didn't specifically ask for me. They said any daughter from the Meng family would do, but in her past life, she had clearly told their parents that the Jing family had explicitly demanded she be the one to marry into their household. Teasing is a sign of affection, and Jing Yechen always picks on you because he likes you. If you marry him, sister, you'll definitely be happy. I looked up at her and nodded timidly. What she didn't know was that everything Zhang Yan showed on the surface was just an act. The real Zhang Yan is ruthless and will stop at nothing to achieve his goals. After marriage, he kept me like a trophy wife in his villa. When he went abroad to expand his business, he personally offered me to those men. Meng Tian never understood why Zhang Yan, the crown prince of Beijing's elite circle, would take interest in a girl from an ordinary family like her. Since she's so desperate to marry, I'll grant her wish. Mom immediately started preparing for Meng Tian's wedding, but when everything was ready, the Zhang family objected to the marriage. He was the crown prince of Beijing's elite social circle. She was the daughter of a small company on the verge of bankruptcy. No one would ever agree to it, but Zhang Yan was dead set on marrying her, and with Meng Tian's help, he pressed on. First, she resolved the crisis at the Zhang family's company, helping them pull through tough times. Later, she saved Zhang Yan's grandmother on the roadside, rushing her to the hospital in time to save her life. She then convinced her father to invest all his assets in a perpetually unprofitable stock and a piece of barren land. Initially, her father was reluctant, but he couldn't resist her coaxing. He had braced himself for a total loss, yet to his astonishment, just 3 days later, the stock skyrocketed, earning him over 100 million. The small company grew into a major corporation, gradually gaining entry into the Zhang family's social circle. Meanwhile, that barren land suddenly soared in value, with numerous people from their circle approaching to purchase it. The Zhang family had their eyes on it too. As expected, the land was sold to the Zhangs, and her marriage was settled. Meanwhile, the Jing family also sent someone to discuss the marriage arrangements. Meng Tian, on the verge of becoming Zhang Yan's wife, always looked at me with pity. Sis, you really need to think carefully about how you're going to live from now on. The Jing family isn't an easy place to be, and that Jing Yechen is the worst kind of playboy. He's constantly surrounded by women. My eyes instantly welled up with tears, and I looked utterly terrified. Little sister, what should I do? I'm so scared. Meng Tian was in high spirits and casually transferred me 100,000 yuan. Sis, there's nothing I can do to help you either. Since you're in such a pitiful state, enjoy a few good days before you have to marry into that family. The moment she left, I finally let out the laughter I'd been holding back. What exactly are you pitying me for? For not having to wait on Jing Yechen while getting paid to live in a mansion, or for my married life being nothing but smooth sailing? If the Zhan family had known in advance that Zhang Yan wasn't their biological child, could he still have built a business empire like he did in his previous life? As fate would have it, Meng Tian and I got married on the very same day. My parents gave Meng Tian the bulk of the family fortune as her dowry, but compared to the Zhan family's wealth, it was still far too little. Meng Tian was a bit upset at first, but when she saw our parents seeing her off on her wedding day while I was left all alone, she broke into a happy smile. Sis, you're the one who's gotta save those spoiled rich kids in the capital's elite circle. I gave a timid nod, just like I always do. She was happy, and that made me happy too. The journey to the Jing family estate was a long one. It took several hours before I finally laid eyes on Jing Yechen. He didn't come to pick me up, just waited for me at the Jing family's doorstep. I felt a bit nervous, since we've never really gotten along. I was afraid he'd just send me away. You didn't run, I guess that means you want to marry me. An irritating voice rang out, and I looked through the car window. Jing Yechen stood by the car door, glaring down at me intently. The car door opened, and the two of them stared at each other in silence. Meng Yan, you're not the one I want to marry. Oh, you still have time to crash the wedding. Jing Yechen smirked and lifted me out of the car. You know me, I'm not the settling down type. Be prepared to have the bed to yourself. I wrapped my arms around Jing Yechen's neck. Noticing his surprise, I said cheerfully, I'd be thrilled if you never came back. Having this luxury villa all to myself sounds perfect. By the way, be careful when you're having fun. Don't catch any diseases. You won't live long. Jing Yechen's face darkened. He threw me heavily onto the bed and slammed the door as he left. Not having to deal with relatives and friends, I enjoyed the peace and quiet. After removing my makeup, I lay down on the bed and fell fast asleep. The next morning, accompanied by Jing Yechen, I met the Jing family. With so many people around, I didn't get a moment to myself until evening. Mrs. Kyo didn't give me a hard time. In fact, she seemed to like me. Maybe because I've been scrapping with Kyo Yakin since we were kids. She's grown used to seeing me around. I'm surprised my family took such a liking to you. I thought they'd give you a tough time. Jing Yechen leaned against the wall, looking me over from head to toe. Humph, I'm this beautiful, this gentle, this wonderful. The only reason you don't like me is because you're blind. Everyone else adores me. I looked up and met Jing Yechen's gaze directly, without a trace of timidity or insecurity. Narcissist. Jing Yechen averted his eyes. I'm not blind. Before I could get a clear answer, Jing Yechen had already left. I returned alone to the bridal suite. The sprawling villa was hushed, enveloped in profound silence. As I rested on the sofa and was about to head upstairs to sleep, the villa's doorbell rang. It was Lu Yan, the rumored love interest Jing Yechen never denied in his previous life, and the one who remained in that role the longest. I heard their divorce was all because of Lu Yan, according to Meng Tian. Lu Yan is a real manipulator who plays the damsel in distress. She looks down on Lu Yan for her poor background and working at a club, yet she keeps losing to her in their confrontations. I don't really care. As long as she keeps her hands off the money Jing Yechen gave me. They can't stand each other anyway, and now they're just cohabiting out of convenience. Jing Yechen can love whoever he wants. At least I don't have to bear children. Life is truly comfortable. With that thought, I didn't give Lu Yan a cold shoulder. I brought her into the villa, poured her a glass of water, and then asked what brought her here. It turned out Lu Yan couldn't afford her mother's medical bills, couldn't reach Jing Yechen, and had no choice but to come to me. I didn't get angry. Instead, I took out my phone and transferred 200,000 to Lu Yan. I'll just demand double the amount back when Jing Yechen brings it up. 3 days later, I returned to my parents' home alone. Jing Yechen had disappeared somewhere. He never came back after leaving that night. In my previous life, Meng Tian also made the homecoming visit alone, so I never expected him to accompany me this time either. When I saw him waiting at the Meng family's doorstep, an unexpected joy welled up inside me. What are you doing here? If I didn't accompany you for your homecoming visit, wouldn't people laugh at us? Jing Yechen patted my head just like he always did. Then took my hand with exaggerated ceremony as we entered the Meng residence together. Meng Tian had already arrived and was sharing her happiness with her mother. Mom, Zhang treats me very well. He buys me anything I like, no matter how expensive it is. That's good to hear. I was worried the Zhang family might mistreat you. If you ever feel wronged, you must tell me. I'd risk my life to make things right for you. I stood by the door, feeling like an outsider. I've long grown accustomed to it, knowing that mother's love belongs solely to Meng Tian. In my past life, when Zhang Yan forced me into those men's beds, I begged mother for help, but she just said, Meng Yan, you're Zhang Yan's wife, the young madam of Beijing's elite circle. Nothing else matters. They kept talking until Jing Yechen lost patience and spoke up, finally noticing my presence. Meng Tian's eyes widened in shock as she whispered incredulously, why is he here, but in the previous life? Tian, what are you saying? Meng Tian took a deep breath to steady herself. Mom, you must have misheard. I didn't say anything. She was overthinking things, worrying she had made another wrong choice. She would never make that mistake again. In this lifetime, she would be the wife of a business magnate presiding over a corporate empire, celebrated by netizens as a great philanthropist. The restaurant, throughout the meal, Meng Tian kept stealing glances at Jing Yechen. Completely oblivious to Zhang Yan's growing displeasure, Jing Yechen and I minded our own business, focusing on our meal without interference. Many of the dishes were Meng Tian's favorites, with seafood being particularly abundant, but I've been allergic to seafood since childhood, and Jing Yechen knew that, so he immediately asked the staff to prepare new dishes, specifically naming my preferred choices. A sharp screech echoed. Meng Tian abruptly stood up, her chair scraping harshly against the floor as the hot soup in front of her tipped over and splashed onto her. Zhang Yan swiftly grabbed a tissue to wipe, asking with worry and urgency, Honey, are you burned? Why did you suddenly stand up? Meng Tian pouted pitifully, tears rolling down her cheeks. It's all my fault for being careless and making you worry. Zhang Yan immediately called the family doctor and took Meng Tian back to the room to check her injury. As they went upstairs, Meng Tian glanced at me with a challenging look in her eyes. I don't understand why she would do that. There's no way she could make me jealous. My parents were so worried about Meng Tian that they couldn't eat a bite. I lost my appetite too, so after saying a quick goodbye to Jing Yechen, I headed straight home. I leaned back in the car seat and closed my eyes to rest. After a long silence, Jing Yechen spoke up, his voice tinged with irritation. You're my wife now. Why didn't you get angry when Lu Yan showed up? You didn't even call me, so you knew all along. Pay me back now. How much? 1 million. Jing Yechen's eyes widened as he stared at me. I batted my innocent eyes and held out my hands, begging for it. A black card landed in my palm. I froze for a moment, stunned that Jing Yechen's money was so easy to get. Meng Tian is such a fool. With this kind of money, she could easily find a better man than Jing Yechen. Days spent alone in the luxury villa were dreadfully dull. Aside from a handful of servants, I never saw another soul. Jing Yechen, on the other hand, was never short of excitement. His scandalous news dominated the trending searches daily, making it impossible to miss. Remembering how Zhang Yan drove me to bankruptcy in my past life, I felt compelled to take action, but before I could make a move, Zhang Yan was already set to go abroad, a full 6 months earlier than last time. Perhaps Meng Tian is anxious for Zhang Yan to build a business empire as quickly as possible. The top floor of the club was filled with noise and commotion. I pushed through the dense crowd and finally spotted Jing Yechen sitting in the center of the sofa. Brother Jing, didn't you used to despise Meng Yan? Why did you agree to marry her? Could it be that you've fallen for her? If he truly liked it here, he'd come play every day. Clearly, he married her just to spite Meng Yan. I heard Zhang Yan is going abroad to start a business. Is he really giving up his family's legacy? Ha, Jing Yechen sneered. Maybe that legacy was never meant for him in the first place. At these words, the people around fell silent for a few seconds before bursting into murmurs. How could he be left out? He's the eldest son of the Zhang family. Exactly. We've been calling him the crown prince of the capital's elite circle for years. It's no joke. Jing Yechen didn't answer. Instead, he shot to his feet, a mix of confusion, excitement, and joy flashing in his eyes. following his gaze, the crowd spotted me standing among them. "Sis, you're here, please, have a seat." He dismissed the women around him and turned off the music. Silence fell quickly. Everyone held their breath, afraid I might snap and hurt them. "Jing Yechen, come home with me." My tone was calm, giving no indication of whether I was angry. "If I come back just because you tell me to, I'd lose all my dignity." Jing Yechen settled back onto the sofa and gestured for a waitress to pour the wine. By sheer coincidence, the waitress turned out to be Lu Yan. "I'm not angry, not even upset," I said calmly. "I'm your wife now. Come home with me." Jing Yechen stopped swirling his glass, leaned back on the sofa, and teased. You are indeed my wife, then call me husband. And I'll leave right away." I rolled my eyes hard and, fighting back the disgust, called out "husband." A smile spread across Jing Yechen's lips. He set down his glass, put his arm around me, and we left straight away. I lost touch with Meng Tian after she went abroad. My parents never brought her up, and I didn't press for details either. Anyway, I'd already warned Meng Tian. Whether she believed me was her call. I started overseeing Jing Yechen's handling of company affairs, making sure he showed up at the office every day. Despite their frequent arguments, Jing Yechen always showed up at the office on time the next day, and the rumors gradually died down. But Jing Yechen isn't someone you can easily control. He often drives me up the wall. Take tonight for example. He refuses to sleep in the master bedroom, the guest room, or even the sofa, insisting on sharing a bed with me. That's absolutely out of the question. I'd have to be insane to sleep in the same bed with him. Half an hour later, the two of them lay on the master bed, disheveled and utterly exhausted. I couldn't fight him off, and he managed to climb onto the bed. I rolled over to the edge of the large bed, putting distance between us, and closed my eyes to sleep. Suddenly, the blanket was yanked away. I turned to grab it back, but he held on for dear life. What was it? In the end, I lost out again. He kindly saved me a spot. But I'd rather freeze than move over there. As the room grew colder, I was shivering, unable to bear it. I slipped under the covers, ignoring the laughter behind me. I quickly fell asleep with my face flushed. In the morning glow, I woke up nestled in a warm embrace. Before I could even look up, Jing Yechen's infuriating voice came from above me. "You clung to me like an octopus all night. I couldn't pry you off no matter how hard I tried. Have you been secretly admiring my good looks all along? Did you fall for me ages ago?" I gave a swift kick, sending Jing Yechen tumbling off the bed. "Honey, be more careful next time. If I hadn't dodged just now, your future happiness would have been gone forever. Get your ass to work." "Yes, dear." Kyoyura went to wash up and change, while I got out of bed and started scrolling through my phone. Trending topics are exploding across all platforms. Hashtag Beijing's elite crown prince is a fraud. Hashtag switched at birth plot comes to life. Hashtag real air surfaces. Reunites with the Zhan family. Hashtag Zhan family's response. Hashtag Yan Zhan, Beijing's crown prince, revealed to be adopted. I turned off my phone, and my smile reflected back at me from the dark screen. I planned all of this from the start. Zhan Yan, without the backing of the Zhan family, do you really think you can build a business empire? In her villa abroad, Meng Tian scrolled through the trending topics one by one, completely dismissing them as baseless rumors spread by netizens. So what if there's video evidence? It's surely just reporters grasping at straws. Yet for some reason, she couldn't shake off this growing sense of panic. She immediately called Zhan Yan and breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing his confirmation that the online rumors were false. She could never be wrong in this lifetime. Soon she would become the wife of a business empire's CEO, a philanthropist admired by all. As days turned into weeks, I finally witnessed the day Jing Yechen took over the company. With company affairs piling up, our bickering gradually faded as we each became absorbed in our respective responsibilities. He handles all the company affairs every day, while I get to spend money and enjoy life. Bill notifications kept flooding Jing Yechen's phone, until he finally reached his breaking point. "Meng Yan, every cent you're spending is money I earned. Don't you think you should try to please me?" I cooked some of Jing Yechen's favorite dishes and brought them to his office myself. Once he was appeased, I went right back to my carefree spending. I've always been a loner. Since childhood, no one wanted to play with me. Only Jing Yechen would hang out with me, though he'd tease me while doing so. That's why I never had any friends. Sitting in the spacious private room, I didn't feel lonely with all these male models keeping me company. But before I could properly admire each model, the room's door was violently kicked open. Jing Yechen's face darkened completely as he hoisted me over his shoulder and headed straight to the nearest hotel. If you lay a finger on me, I'll end my life right here. Ha, so you really do despise me that much, Jing Yechen said with a wounded expression, releasing his grip on me, sitting up on the bed. I paused before explaining, it's not that I dislike you, I just think you're filthy. Jing Yechen froze for a moment before pinning me down on the bed again. I've never touched anyone else, nor allowed anyone to touch me. I'm not tainted. His fragile words reached my ears, and I stopped struggling. If that's really the case, how do you explain all those rumors? And what about Lu Yan? At that thought, I looked straight into Jing Yechen's eyes and said, I'm not Lu Yan. I'm not the Yan you have in your heart. Jing Yechen didn't let go, his tight-lipped expression quickly turning into a smirk. Are you jealous? No. I turned my head away, evading his intense gaze. The only reason I'm helping her is because her name is Lu Yan. The Yan in her name is the same character as yours. Do you understand now? Does Jing Yechen have feelings for me? Before I could press further, my lips were sealed, and I lost any chance to speak again. That night marked a quantum leap in my relationship with Jing Yechen. We became inseparable, spending every waking moment together while the outside world faded into the background. It wasn't until my mother called that I learned Meng Tian and Zhang Yan had nearly broken up. Truth will out. Meng Tian soon discovered the online rumors were factual, and after her parents confirmed them, she immediately confronted Zhang Yan. Then I discovered Zhang Yan was keeping mistresses, more than one. You promised I'd be the only one in your life, that there wouldn't even be a hint of scandal, so what are they to you now? Meng Tian, you're not a child anymore, can't you be more reasonable? They're not what you think, they'll be very useful in the future, those are just excuses. Zhang Yan, you don't love me anymore. We never found out how Zhang Yan managed to calm Meng Tian down. Not only did she stop making a scene, but she also cut ties with the Meng family entirely. My parents were deeply worried, but with no way to reach her, they had no choice but to call and ask me to figure something out. What could I possibly do? I couldn't get in touch with Meng Tian either. As months passed, my parents stopped calling to share their worries with me and gradually began inviting me back home for meals instead. Meng Tian's disappearance made them remember they had another daughter. 3 years have passed, and Jing Yechen and I remain deeply attached. Our relationship stronger than ever. Lu Yan, along with all those past rumors, had long been handled by Jing Yechen. He was no longer the playboy of the Beijing social circle, but the president of the Jing Corporation, the influential figure everyone in the circle now sought to befriend. Even the Zhan family lowered their pride and deliberately tried to get close. In my past life, Zhang Yan's mother absolutely detested me, even though I was abroad. She would call every single day to berate and insult me. Now, watching her put on a fake smile to curry favor with me, I just feel disgusted. Jing Yechen noticed this, and from then on, the Zhan family never appeared before me again. Another year passed, and as the Kyo group continued to thrive steadily, Kyo Yerwaki found more time to spend with me, watching the sunset. He told me that he had fallen for me a long time ago. Back then, I was a scrawny, pitiful child with no friends. Always keeping to myself in a corner. His heart went out to me, but helping me openly didn't fit the tough image he projected, so he used the pretense of teasing me to keep me company, and in doing so, ended up giving his whole life to me. I've liked him too, and for a long time, growing up, everyone adored Meng Tian and always flocked around her. I was constantly overlooked and left out. Then one day, a little boy was willing to play with me. I was no longer alone, I finally had a companion. Even though he often teased me, I never wanted to be without him. Gradually, I found myself falling for him. The night I learned his parents were coming to propose marriage, I was so overjoyed I couldn't sleep a wink. But Meng Tian told me the Jings had explicitly asked for her hand in marriage, not mine. In that moment, my heart shattered. So when Zhang Yan proposed to me, I accepted. If I couldn't marry the one I loved, then it made no difference who I ended up with. I'm pregnant. And Meng Tian has returned to the country. There's no business empire, just an endless cycle of debt. In the previous life, the Zhan family never revealed a word about Zhang Yan's origins. No one outside the inner circle had any idea. Leveraging that identity, Zhang Yan connected with numerous business tycoons. By trading my body for favors, he gradually built what became his so-called commercial empire. Without that status in this life, he couldn't connect with those people. Even if he tried to gain benefits through Meng Tian, it would be negligible. Moreover, Jing Yechen's intervention accelerated the collapse of Zhang Yan's company. It's been 4 years since I last saw Meng Tian, according to Jing Yechen. When they returned to the country this time, the true young master of the Zhan family took action, and Zhan Yan ended up with nothing. Their former mansion was long gone, leaving them with no choice but to rent a place. The rent money was actually covered by the Meng family. I did everything I could to avoid running into Meng Tian, worried that if she was struggling, she might lash out and harm my child in a fit of madness, but the more I tried to avoid it, the more inevitable it seemed to become. During my prenatal checkup at the hospital, I ran into Meng Tian. The cheerful, coquettish girl from years ago was gone, replaced by a face etched with worry. The stark contrast was palpable. She stood alone in the registration line while I was accompanied by the hospital director and physicians. I didn't approach her, opting to finish my examination quickly and slip away unnoticed. As I passed by the registration desk, Meng Tian reached out and stopped me. "Meng Yan, you've been reborn too, haven't you? Why didn't you tell me? You just stood by and watched me walk right into the fire." She clenched her fists, glaring at me fiercely. "Your gloating won't last long. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me." I stumbled backward and fell into a warm embrace that trembled with urgency and fear. It was Jing Yechen. "Don't be afraid, with me here, no one will lay a finger on you." He scooped me into his arms and strode away. I turned to look at Meng Tian standing there. If my eyes didn't deceive me, the marks on her exposed skin clearly indicated she had contracted. Zhan Yan had sent Meng Tian to someone else's bed. Yet it still failed to revive the company. I remembered myself from my previous life. Those experiences made my body tremble uncontrollably. Jing Yechen immediately tightened his embrace, holding me securely against his chest. "Meng Tian is my sister. I could never just stand by and do nothing, so after she went abroad, I called her repeatedly to warn her. Later, I even asked Jing Yechen to step in and help rescue her multiple times. But when I suggested bringing her back home, she refused, insisting over and over that she was the wife of a business empire's CEO. I realized she was too far gone. There was no saving her now. A week later, Zhan Yan was arrested and imprisoned on suspicion of murdering the eldest son of the Zhan family. According to Jing Yechen, Zhan Yan couldn't endure the hardships of menial work, yet was too proud to accept the Meng family's help. The true young master of the Zhan family also made life difficult for Zhan Yan at every turn, making it nearly impossible for him to remain in the country. With no money to go abroad, Zhan Yan attempted to kidnap the Zhan family's true young master for ransom. Unexpectedly, he was caught by the bodyguards immediately. The Zhan family was furious and pulled every string to ensure Zhan Yan would spend the rest of his life behind bars. As for Meng Tian, Jing Yechen, fearing she might harm me, had her committed to a psychiatric hospital. My parents gave their blessing. She brought this all upon herself. 5 years later, Zhan Yan died in prison, and Meng Tian soon followed. After grieving the loss of one daughter, my parents poured all their love into me, but it was too late. I no longer needed their love. Jing Yechen built his own business empire, leaving home early and returning late every day with no time for me or our son. The two of us waited and waited in the villa until boredom drove us to sneak out. Amusement parks, Happy Valley, esports arenas. After having a wild time together, they ended up choosing a street food stall to feast on. Suddenly, a shadow fell over them. They looked up in frozen place. "Didn't we agree to wait for me? You went and had fun behind my back." Jing Yechen stood with his hands on his hips, visibly furious. "Dad, Mom and I have been waiting for days. We just can't take it anymore." "Humph, you have some nerve saying that. You stole my wife, and I haven't even settled that score with you yet." "Dad, I'm your son." I swallowed hard and prepared to make a run for it. My collar was grabbed, and I was eventually carried into the car and taken back to the villa. Looking at the soft bed, a wave of dread washed over me. I called out for my son, but there was no response. Eventually, my voice grew hoarse until I couldn't make a sound. Story 2, the strategy failed. So I just let it all go. I tied him up, had tender and affectionate moments with him every day, and even gave birth to a son for him. Finally, I died a tragic death in front of him. I enjoyed 5 years of carefree time happily, but then the mission suddenly restarted. As soon as I was reborn, I was grabbed by the neck viciously. The man's usually well-behaved face now had blood-red eyes. "Another one who doesn't care about her life. Who gave you the guts to imitate Ran?" Not far away, a little figure who resembled him walked out slowly, with a shiny pistol pointed at my forehead. "Anyone who imitates my mother must die." 1. I was eating potato chips when the system forcefully sent me back to the world of the novel. if you don't go back, those two father-son will almost turn that world upside down. I had been away from that world for 5 years. At that time, my body in the original world had a terminal illness. And only by completing the strategy mission could I get the reward of being cured, but no matter how hard I tried, I could never win over Lin Qingling. He was like a flower on a lofty mountain that was extremely difficult to pick. In a fit of anger, I just let it all go. I tied up my strategy target who looked down on me, drugged him, had tender and affectionate moments with him every day, and gave birth to a lovely son for him, but Lin Qingling never had a good look for me from beginning to end. He always said I was disgusting. The disgust that emanated from him, from the inside out, deeply hurt me. Extremely heartbroken, I took the initiative to ask the system to take me out of the world, so on the day my son turned 1 month old, like every time before, I lowered my head and kissed Lin Qingling's lips. He frowned and still didn't respond. From shallow to deep, it was my farewell kiss to Lin Qingling. I took the key and unlocked Lin Qingling's handcuffs. Under his surprised gaze, I smiled. I set you free, Lin Qingling. What trick are you going to play this time? Lin Qingling looked at me with eyes full of annoyance. He hated me so much, my heart ached for a moment. To say I wasn't sad would be a lie. Although I forcefully tied Lin Qingling home, after a year of living together day and night, with tender and affectionate moments every day, and my such dedication, even if there was no love, there should be some habit, right? No tricks. I just suddenly realized the fact that you won't like me. I twitched the corners of my mouth and looked at Lin Qingling's back as he couldn't wait to leave. Sorry, Lin Qingling. I just have one request. Take good care of our son. I watched him open the door of the room without hesitation. He didn't even look back. Without a trace of reluctance. Goodbye, Lin Qingling, I said softly. After that, under the system's prompt of about to leave the world, I turned around and rushed towards the balcony, jumping off. What happened after that was a blank. I only knew that when I opened my eyes, I had already returned to my own world, thinking that I would die someday anyway. I simply enjoyed life. The 3-month deadline for death, because of my good attitude, was actually extended by me for 5 years. The doctor said it was a miracle. I didn't understand what the system meant. What did it mean that the father-son would turn the world upside down? In my impression, Lin Qingling had a steady personality, rarely smiled, and was even more successful in his studies, winning scholarships and national awards with ease. My son, if brought up by him, would surely grow up to be upright. That's what I thought, so I made up my mind to let the system take me out of the world. But before I could think too much, I was grabbed by the neck viciously by a hand with distinct knuckles. That well-behaved and handsome face that I hadn't seen for 5 years appeared in front of me again without any mental preparation. The man's eyes were blood red, filled with rolling hatred. Another one who doesn't care about her life. Who gave you the guts to imitate Ran? I couldn't catch my breath for a while and desperately beat the hand that was choking my breath. I spoke out of breath. Lin Qingling, I am Qin Ran. The force on my neck loosened slightly. Lin Qingling was visibly astonished. The door of the room not far away was opened. A child who resembled him walked out slowly. With a cold face, he steadily pointed a shiny pistol at my forehead. His words were terrifying. Not what a child could say. Anyone who imitates my mother must die. Too, judging from the appearance of this child, I recognized him almost immediately. This was my son, at that time, because Lin Qingling couldn't accept him. I didn't name him. I didn't expect him to have grown so tall now. Lin Qingling's hand completely let go at this moment. I slid down from the wall, continuously stroking my throat, inhaling and coughing crazily. You're really trying to kill me, Lin Qingling. It's been 5 years. Why do you still hate me so much? He obviously hadn't reacted yet and just looked at me warily. The big one and the small one each occupied one side at this moment. And even their defensive expressions were exactly the same. Although I was coughing with tears in my eyes, I still beckoned to my son with full of collagen face. I haven't seen you for 5 years. Come here quickly, son, and let mom give you a hug. He held the pistol, moved forward 2 steps like a little adult, and then quickly stopped. The child said coldly, Dad said that mom died not long after I was born. There's only one mom. All you women, just because you look like my mom. You want to be my mom. It's a pipe dream. I'm going to kill all you bad women. I shivered because of his words. Subconsciously, I looked up and frowned at Lin Qingling, who was standing aside and silent. I asked you to take good care of our son, and this is how you teach him. Lin Qingling, you actually taught him to kill. are you crazy? You can hate me, but you can't hate our son." Lin Qingling still just looked at me. The bloodshot eyes in his eyes were fully stretched. Looking very terrifying, he moved his lips, his lowered head actually looked a bit pitiful. I clicked my tongue. I tried to stand up straight and reach for my son's hand, but was stopped by Lin Qingling. He grabbed my wrist, his lips trembling. That look seemed to have passed through thousands of years and landed on me. He used too much force, and I felt a bit of pain and wanted to withdraw my hand. "Qin Ran," I paused. That voice was low and hoarse, as if with a faint plea. After a long while, I finally heard him speak. It seemed to be choked with sobs, and he asked uncertainly, "Is it really you who came back? Don't lie to me anymore, please." 3. Logically speaking, Lin Qingling didn't like me. Even if I died in front of him, he wouldn't be the least bit moved. But now, looking at the handcuffs on my wrists and ankles, although the insides of the handcuffs were wrapped with sponge to avoid hurting me, I still fell into deep thought. Could it be that Lin Qingling's personality has become abnormal after being tied up by me? The door made a click sound. Lin Qingling walked in with a plate. He was still as handsome as ever. One could even say that he was more charming than before. With a height of 1.88 meters, he had a typical muscular body when taking off his clothes but looked slender when wearing them, coupled with that abstinent and perfect face. Even I, who had seen many models, still couldn't help but be infatuated. The steaming mist rose along the edge of the bowl. It was my favorite fish, filet congee. He scooped a spoonful, blew on it, and brought it to my lips. His movements were gentle, as if we were really a couple who had been in love for many years and had a son, if we ignored the fact that I was wearing overly heavy shackles at the moment and it was difficult for me to even raise my hand. Eating a bowl of congee was extremely tiring. I took a breath. "Lin Qingling, are you taking revenge on me?" "Revenge?" Lin Qingling seemed to not understand my words at all. He slowly wiped the remaining liquid on my lips with his fingertips. He deliberately made the movement very slow, making my senses infinitely magnified. I watched him lower his head, his handsome face approaching me. A burning kiss landed on the center of my lips. This was the first time he took the initiative to kiss me. It was not a shallow kiss but deepened infinitely until I was out of breath. There were red marks at the corners of his eyes. Suddenly, he pushed me down on the head of the bed and used his knee to push open my legs. "If you're an imposter, I'll kill you." Lin Qingling's voice was as cold as if he had just come out of an ice cellar. I felt my clothes being peeled off. I finally couldn't help it and struggled to shout, "Lin Qingling, how could you become like this?" "I became like this." A sneering laugh. His slender and cold fingers stroked my face. He took out a gift ribbon and wrapped it around my forearm circle by circle, until I couldn't move at all. I could only let him do as he pleased. My terrified reflection was in Lin Qingling's amber pupils. Ran, didn't you turn me into this? So, why did you leave me in Siren? 4. I was tossed and tormented by Lin Qingling all night long. He even personally served me to take a bath, but as we were washing, things started to go wrong again. In the second half of the night, he wrapped me in his arms. Despite his tall and big figure, he was in a curled-up posture, an action that showed extreme lack of security, but I couldn't fall asleep no matter what. In the darkness, I traced Lin Qingling's handsome face with my eyes. 5 years seemed to have made him more mature. The remaining bit of immaturity in his eyebrows and eyes was covered by his always furrowed brows. I stretched out a finger and quietly smoothed the wrinkles between his brows. What on earth had happened in these 5 years? "Don't leave," a murmur seemed to spill from Lin Qingling's lips. "What?" I didn't hear clearly and moved closer to him. Suddenly, I met a pair of deep eyes. Lin Qingling had woken up at some point. Our breaths intertwined, very close. There were still ambiguous red marks on his neck left by me. I withdrew my hand awkwardly. The handcuffs collided, making a clear sound. It was particularly harsh in the quiet environment. "What you said before, Siren." I tried to ignore his scorching gaze and changed the subject. "Is that our son? Did you name him?" He didn't speak and just looked at me quietly. His look gave me goosebumps all over my back. There was inquiry and interrogation in his eyes. I suddenly remembered what Lin Qingling had said before. There were many people who pretended to be me and wanted to be my son's mother. I twitched the corners of my mouth and was about to explain to Lin Qingling half-jokingly that I faked my death with the help of the system, but I was stopped by his next words. His palm gently stroked my cheek. His fingertips were dry and warm, but there was countless mockery and coldness in his eyes. "You're the one who imitates her the most vividly. From now on, you can stay here." 5. Imitate whom? Imitate Qin Ran. I imitate myself. I came to a conclusion from his words. Over the years, Lin Qingling had found many women who resembled me. Looking at his naked and muscular upper body, I suddenly felt disgusted. Although I used extreme methods on Lin Qingling before, I had only ever had him. I had him in my heart all the time, even though he didn't have a good look for me. I never thought of fooling around with other men behind his back. Now this body had probably had affairs with countless women. I suddenly struggled violently. Lin Qingling's pupils trembled because of my actions, and he used force to hold down my hands. What are you doing? He furrowed his brows again. I stared at him viciously, trying to see some emotional fluctuations in Lin Qingling's eyes, but his eyes were still the same as 5 years ago, making it impossible to figure out his mood at this moment. Lin Qingling, you're so dirty. I gritted my teeth. I thought he would react, but he just held my hand, pulled my body, which had crawled a little further away, back a bit, and fixed me back in his arms. I heard him. Lin Qingling was very restless when sleeping. He was like an octopus that couldn't breathe without holding me, tightly wrapped around me, scaring me awake several times in the middle of the night. In my impression, Lin Qingling was always well behaved, whether in life or when sleeping. Before, we also slept in the same bed and covered with the same quilt. But there was always a very obvious dividing line between him and me, unless I drugged him. Otherwise, he would never take the initiative to cross that line, as if we were two completely unrelated people. What Lin Qingling was like before going to bed, he would still be like that when waking up. When I opened my eyes, I still felt extremely angry. 5 years ago, he felt extremely humiliated even if he touched me once. 5 years later, he had slept with countless women and still held those women tightly in his arms when sleeping. This made me, who was crazy about winning him over at that time, look extremely stupid. System, I want to go home. Why did you bring me back unaccountably? I was furiously angry with no way to vent. Out of sight, out of mind. If this continued, I might be the one who turned dark. The mechanical voice of the system floated faintly. Are you sure, host? Lin Qingling has become like this because you didn't follow the strategy rules, used abnormal strategy methods, and even died in front of him without permission, causing a great change in his temperament. The Lord God is very angry about this. This is your only chance to atone for your sins now. As long as you lead Lin Qingling and his son back to the right path, your body in the original world can survive, and the Lord God will give you a large sum of wealth. Otherwise, your body in the original world will die immediately. 6. Well, now I have to continue, the system kindly reminded. Host, actually it's very simple. Lin Qingling's son is also your son. After all, you have a blood relationship connected by the umbilical cord. You can start with the little guy first and influence him with love. Children are easy to coax. A little guy who carries a gun and always talks about killing. I said calmly. The system fell silent. Look. Even the system thinks it's difficult. Why do they have to make things difficult for an ordinary and poor person like me? In a daze, I fell asleep again. In my sleep, it seemed that something soft touched my face. I mumbled, so annoying, and waved away that strange feeling. Sure enough, that feeling disappeared. It landed on my ear and chest again. When I woke up, Lin Qingling was no longer in the room. I probed, and there was no warmth on the other side of the bed. He had been gone for a long time. Lin Qingling didn't untie the restraints on my hands and feet. I lowered my eyes and measured. The length of the chain could barely allow me to reach the bathroom, but it was obvious that Lin Qingling didn't intend to let me out of the room. I looked around. The walls were all white, and even the decorative wall cabinets were in cold colors, giving no sign of human warmth. It was very much in line with Lin Qingling's consistent cold preferences. I planned to get out of bed and wash up first, however. As soon as my feet touched the ground, my legs went weak and I knelt down. Fortunately, there was carpet laid beside the bed, so I didn't hurt my knees when I landed on the floor. This Lin Qingling, did he secretly drug me? I cursed while rubbing my waist, trying to stand up again. When I raised my eyes, I met a pair of watery eyes. The little figure was hiding behind the door, and only those eyes that were very similar to mine were rolling around in the crack of the door. He seemed very curious about me. It was my lovely son. Baby, come in, I called out eagerly. The child curled up his body, and those big eyes disappeared all of a sudden. He must have run away. I sighed in disappointment. The next second, the door creaked open. The little guy, who was not even as tall as my waist, walked in cautiously. His delicate and pretty face was full of vigilance. And there was also a contradiction of wanting to get close to me. I instinctively looked at his hands. Seeing that he wasn't holding anything, I felt relieved and beckoned to him again. Son, let mom give you a kiss, although I was yelling at the system last night that I wanted to go home. But it was only when I truly came into face-to-face contact with my son that I realized how hard it was to cut off the blood relationship, seeing this little dumpling who was tentatively approaching me. I just wanted to spoil him as a domineering mother, when the distance between us shortened to a certain extent. I was quick-eyed and quick-handed. I suddenly pulled my son into my arms and rubbed his chubby cheeks. I smelled the pleasant scent on him. It seemed that apart from not teaching him well, Lin Qingling had taken good care of his daily life. His little arms were plump, and his skin was a healthy color. At this moment, he was wearing a small suit with a tie, and the leather shoes were obviously custom-made and expensive. Are you going to a party, baby? I glanced at my son's hair styled with hairspray. At first, my son was still struggling in my arms. When he heard my voice, he suddenly became quiet and stopped moving. Can you take mom with you? I coaxed him. Talk to your dad about it. Mom hasn't seen you for a long time and wants to be with you all the time. Surely Lin Qingling couldn't keep me locked in the room forever. My son nestled in my chest, and his chubby hands hugged my neck. My heart melted into a puddle of water because of his action. However, Lin Qingling's son was just like Lin Qingling. Even though he was only 5 years old, he still inherited his father's coldness and seriousness. His little face was tense, and his tone was stiff. No, you'll run away, you'll leave me and dad behind, you can't be let out. Besides, there are many pretty aunts at the party. After saying that, the little guy let go of his hands. He slipped out of my arms in a flash and ran away. I was left alone, feeling disoriented in front of the door that was quickly closed. 7. My son's words kept repeating in my mind. There are many pretty aunts at the party. There are many pretty aunts. Pretty aunts. Fine. Lin Qingling locked me up and then went to enjoy his life in the company of other women. 3 meals a day were delivered to me on time. The breakfast was my favorite fish fillet congee. The lunch had my favorite braised beef brisket and curry, and the dinner included my favorite snacks. It was as if the menu was tailor-made for me. The person who delivered the food was probably a nanny. She was of a certain age and very tight-lipped. No matter what I said, she wouldn't reply. She just put the food in front of me. I won't eat it. I asked her to take it away. She said expressionlessly, if you don't eat, Mr. Lin will punish me. She showed me the scars on her arm on purpose or not. I widened my eyes. I tried to find signs of lying on the nanny's face. Unfortunately, everyone in the Lin family seemed to be cut from the same mold, and it was impossible to tell what they were thinking from their faces. After the nanny left, I clenched my fists and punched the bed as if to vent my anger. You're really something, Lin Qingling. Not only are you abnormal towards me, but you also play the game of abuse. You're simply not human. System, I don't want to live anymore. I want to go back. I shouted. The system appeared helplessly. Host, don't be willful. I frowned, and my eyes were sour. Look at these father and son. One is looking for substitutes everywhere and locking me up, and the other doesn't recognize me and wants to find other pretty moms. And did you see the scars on the nanny's hands? There's a good chance that I'll be the next one to be beaten. I can't go on with this life. I couldn't win over Lin Qingling 5 years ago, and I still can't do it 5 years later. I started to give up again. I want to go on strike and slack off. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to humiliate myself. Host, I want to go back, even if it means letting me die. As soon as I finished speaking, the door was suddenly opened eagerly. The sound was so loud that I turned around at once. Before I could regain my senses, I was suddenly pulled into someone's arms. The fresh fragrance of gardenias lingered in my nose. It was the perfume I loved to spray the most 5 years ago. My nose hit the hard chest of the person in front of me, and he tightened his arms with such great force that it seemed he wanted to integrate me into his bones. His voice was trembling, and even the body that was holding me was shaking. Don't leave. I beg you not to leave. I was wrong. I can give you whatever you want. I just beg you not to leave me again, please. Tears seeped down my collar, wetting my neck and slowly sliding down through my clothes. Everywhere they touched seemed to be burned. I was hugged so tightly that I couldn't breathe. I gasped for breath and called Lin Qingling's name, but he still didn't want to let go. It was only when I hugged him back and gently patted his back that he seemed to be released from a great burden. He gasped and fell to the ground with me in his arms. I could hear his painful moans in my ears. Only then did I smell that besides the fragrance of gardenias, There was also a strong smell of alcohol on Lin Qingling. Was he drunk? 8. After much persuasion, I managed to coax Lin Qingling onto the bed. His eyes were tightly closed, and the beautiful corners of his eyes were stained with a coquettish red. He was wearing the same black suit as my son. It seemed that he had taken off his tie on the way. The collar of his shirt was wide open, and the exposed skin was also tinged with a pinkish hue. The seductive scene in front of me made me swallow my saliva involuntarily. I went to the bathroom to get a towel to wipe his face. When the towel reached the back of his ear, he grabbed my wrist with his backhand. He opened his eyes. The whites of his eyes were scarlet, and there were faint dark circles under his eyes. It seemed that he hadn't had a good rest for a long time. Since you're awake, go take a shower by yourself. I knew I couldn't break free from his grip, so I didn't waste my energy. Instead, I directly looked into those clear eyes. Ran, whether it was 5 years ago or 5 years later, this was the first time Lin Qingling called me so seriously and affectionately in front of me. I was taken aback. I had prepared a lot of words to defend myself for a whole day, but because of these 2 words, I didn't say a single one. Seeing that I didn't speak, he called me again. His eyes were shining brightly. I coughed and replied awkwardly, "Why? There were so many pretty girls at the party. Didn't you have a good time?" "I didn't talk to them," he pouted, looking just like an enlarged version of my son. "What should I do?" Drunk Lin Qingling seemed a bit too cute. I bent down, carefully observed his expression, and continued to fish for information. "Then why didn't you take Ran with you?" As soon as I said this, the air became visibly silent. Lin Qingling seemed to be thinking. His brows were furrowed tightly, and even his facial features were twisted. I quickly reached out to smooth his brows. I didn't know why, but I really didn't want to see Lin Qingling in such a tangled state. I did something wrong and made Ran angry, so Ran left and won't come back again. I'll never be able to see her again. He lowered his eyes and fell asleep again. I heard Lin Qingling's even breathing. After a moment of silence, I still finished wiping his face, took off his coat, and covered him with a quilt. Then I leaned against the head of the bed. I stared blankly at the blank ceiling. 9. Lin Qingling was overly self-disciplined. No matter what he did the previous night or how late he stayed up, he would always wake up before me. I gradually got used to the 3 meals a day. I gradually accepted his caresses, and that little guy who came to visit me every day, to make it easier for me to interact with my son, Lin Qingling, out of mercy, untied the handcuffs on my feet. One day, my son came to me shyly and, for the first time, said to me, "I want to go to the amusement park." This was the first time he showed a childlike expression in front of me. It seemed that Lin Qingling had never taken him there. I also really wanted to make up for the childhood that my son had missed, but, I raised the handcuffs on my wrist. "But Mom can't go." My son's eyes dimmed for a moment. He drooped his shoulders and left the room. Because of this, I hated Lin Qingling deeply. What a great opportunity to cultivate my relationship with my son. About 20 minutes later, the little guy appeared again. He furtively handed me a key. I took it suspiciously and tentatively inserted it into the keyhole. It actually opened. The sudden freedom made me feel a moment of confusion. My first reaction was to kiss my son's face hard. He smelled so good. My son smelled so good. The little guy might have gotten used to my kisses. He didn't struggle and let me kiss him to my heart's content. Then he blushed and whispered, "Can we go to the amusement park now?" "Of course we can." I picked up my son and carried him out of the door that had been closed for many days. Only then did I realize that the place where Lin Qingling had locked me up was a duplex villa, and the room where I was locked was on the 2nd floor. The decoration outside the room was exactly as I had imagined. It was still in the same cold tones, and only the sofa was an unexpectedly bright yellow. In front of it was a 120-inch TV. Lin Qingling didn't like watching TV. After all, before me, Lin Qingling had had many women. I thought sourly that maybe it had been bought for other women before. I didn't want to look at it anymore. I turned around and asked my son, "Have you seen Mom's clothes these days?" I had been wearing different styles of pajamas, or sometimes I secretly wore Lin Qingling's t-shirts. I couldn't go out to play in my pajamas. I had originally intended to ask where the clothes I had been wearing when I came to this world were, but my son took my hand and led me into a room at the end of the stairs. This room wasn't as bright as the other rooms outside. There wasn't even a light installed. Approaching this place was like walking into an invisible abyss. I hesitated and held my son back. "Good son, are you sure Mom's clothes are in here?" "Yeah." My son nodded affirmatively. "I saw Dad take your clothes and go in." My eyesight is 5.3, I won't be wrong, that's not what I meant. The door was pushed open by my son with a palm. The sight that met my eyes was shocking. The whole room was covered with my photos of me smiling, crying, sleeping, and being angry. It was like the gathering place of a strange ceremony. The decoration and arrangement of the room were exactly the same as the room where I had locked Lin Qingling up 5 years ago. Even the little pig ornament in the corner of the desk had been replicated. On the bookshelf was a group photo of me and Lin Qingling when I had forced him before. His face was stiff, and he looked very impatient. I had a bright smile and snuggled up to him like a little bird, making a V gesture. That was the only group photo of the two of us. It was a pity that later I died, and I couldn't take the photo with me. I had a hunch that in the wardrobe were all the clothes I had worn 5 years ago. My feet moved forward uncontrollably. My hand was about to touch the handle of the wardrobe. Suddenly, Lin Qingling's cold voice came from behind me, like the call of the god of death from hell. What are you two doing? 10. I was startled. I squatted down. I picked up my son who was standing beside me and held him in front of me as a shield. It was all my son who brought me here. It has nothing to do with me. Don't kill me to silence me. My son. Lin Qingling walked towards me with the steps of the god of death. Each step seemed to be crushing the tip of my heart. I bit my lower lip tightly. My son's voice of pain came up from below. You're hugging me too tightly. I quickly covered his mouth and whispered in his ear. You're his son. He won't do anything to you. I'm just a dispensable woman. He can kill me if he wants to. I gave birth to you after 10 months of pregnancy. Even if I have no credit, I have hard work. You can't be so heartless, little thing. Lin Qingling bent down. His perfect face approached mine. I held my breath. I regretted it deeply. Why hadn't the first thing I did after the handcuffs were untied been to escape from the villa? Now, I had touched Lin Qingling's sore spot. With his character, I didn't know what he would do to me. However, the next second, I saw his hand bypass me and open the wardrobe that I had wanted to open. I turned my head. As I had expected, they were all my former clothes. There was also a beautiful goose yellow evening dress, which I had originally planned to wear to a dinner party with Lin Qingling 5 years ago, but later, there was no later, I let Lin Qingling go and even jumped off the building in front of him. Lin Qingling, you must hate me. Right. I let out a deep sigh and, mustering up my courage, raised my head to look directly at Lin Qingling not far from me. Hearing this, Lin Qingling looked at me. I pestered you, and when you ignored me, I tied you up and drugged you. I even gave birth to a son for you against your will. You must hate me, right? Any one of these charges alone was enough to sentence me to death. But everyone has their youth. At that time, I truly liked Lin Qingling, with a bit of annoyance and anger mixed in. He moved his lips. I gave a self-deprecating smile. Maybe I can't live for long, and that's probably my retribution. I'm sorry for making you suffer. You hate me. You finally got rid of me. And after 5 years, you have to see me every day again. Let me go, Lin Qingling. Don't worry. Anyway, I'll disappear completely soon, and you won't have to be bothered by me all the time. You're leaving again. This angry roar startled both me and my son at the same time. Lin Qingling's face looked very grim. Hidden storms and anger seemed to surround him, and he looked as if he was about to go crazy. Seeing this, my son quickly broke free from me and grabbed Lin Qingling's arm. Dad, Mom won't leave. I'll stop Mom. My son was like an ant on a hot pan, so anxious that sweat poured down his face. When he saw that Lin Qingling didn't do anything further, he quickly ran over and grabbed the hem of my clothes. Mom, tell Dad quickly that you won't leave. Mom, why do you always want to leave me and Dad? Don't you love us at all? He looked as if he was about to cry. His nasal voice was humming, making people feel sorry for him. I couldn't spare the thought to be happy that my son finally called me Mom because Lin Qingling didn't look well at this moment. He was breathing wildly. Tears were falling from his eyes like water from a faucet with the tap broken. Unable to be stopped, Qin ran. Do you know how many women who looked like you appeared in front of me before you came? Each of them said that she was Ran. The ridiculous thing is that I really thought it was you who had come back. But I thought, since you were even willing to die in front of me, how could you possibly come back? His tears soaked his shirt, and a few drops fell on his coat, outlining faint water halos, which were incredibly beautiful. You don't know, and you don't want to know. My son wiped Lin Qingling's tears with his sleeve, but soon, his own tears couldn't be stopped either. My classmates always say that I don't have a mom, but over the years, a bunch of people have been competing to be my mom. I asked Dad why, and Dad said that none of them were Ran, and none of them were Mom. my mom is already dead. I didn't believe it. I always firmly believed that mom would come back. So I want to kill those women because they are blocking my mom from coming back. I admit that I was shocked by what the father and son said. It was also at this moment that I discovered the mystery. I almost never appeared in public with Lin Qingling, and Lin Qingling had never publicly expressed that he liked me. How could there be a bunch of women who looked like me appearing in front of Lin Qingling? Was it the system? Host, speak of the devil and he appears. System. What on earth is going on? I didn't taboo that the father and son were still there. A potential guess made me feel unprecedented anger. If that was really the case, then I, Lin Qingling, and even my son were all beings controlled and toyed with by the system. After you died, Lin Qingling's Melanism value has always been at the critical point. The Lord God was afraid that the world would collapse, and couldn't send you back either. So he created some women who looked similar to you or even exactly the same as you. He even gave those women the memories between you and Lin Qingling. Logically speaking, there was no mistake, but we don't know how Lin Qingling managed to do it. He could always find out at the first moment that those women weren't you. As time went by, he became hostile towards every woman, even Lin Siren, that is, your son, the host, also became melanistic. We really had no other choice but to find you, the host, and forcefully send you back. The world can't collapse. Host, you guys are going too far, using my appearance and my memories to deceive Lin Qingling and deceive my own flesh and blood. Lin Qingling, this time it's really me. I'm Qin Ran, not those strange women. I threw myself in front of Lin Qingling and protected him. This time, it was me who enclosed him in that small corner, after being deceived for so long. It was impossible not to be defensive towards others. I seriously held Lin Qingling's face in my hands and looked into his red eyes. Lin Qingling, believe me, I don't not love you and our son, I just really want to live. After saying that, I fell silent. Human nature is selfish. I want to live so much. I still have a lot of things to do in the real world, and I don't want to die. If at the beginning I approached Lin Qingling with the purpose of the strategy, later on, I really fell in love with Lin Qingling. I couldn't stand the fact that I was approaching him with a purpose for the strategy. I also couldn't stand being hated by the person I liked countless times. That's why I chose to give up and leave the world. And this time I came back, although it was forced, and although it was also for the sake of being able to live, but I couldn't say that I had no feelings at all for Lin Qingling and my son. The unprovoked jealousy and the genuine love for my son from the bottom of my heart proved at every moment. I can't forget Lin Qingling. I love the little flesh that came from my body. I carefully leaned forward and kissed Lin Qingling's lips, just a gentle peck. Lin Qingling, believe me, I repeated it eagerly. I was afraid that he would regard me as one of those women who deceived him. I was afraid that I would also become one of those women, but Lin Qingling said, I know. I blinked. I saw the curve of his lips. He smiled and kissed me back. Suddenly, I quickly covered my son's eyes. I heard Lin Qingling's voice, like the clear sky after the rain and the gentle breeze caressing my face. He said, I know, the first moment I saw you, I knew, my Ran is back. Thank you for coming back. Epilogue 1. Lin Qingling no longer locked me up. The thing he liked to do the most was to sit on the sofa, let me half lie in his arms, and watch TV with me. But the current TV programs are really boring. Lin Qingling looked particularly aggrieved. Ran, you used to like this the most. Then I remembered. At that time, I was always eager to do some things that couples do with Lin Qingling. Watching movies was the first on the list, but I couldn't take Lin Qingling, who was wearing handcuffs, out, so lying in Lin Qingling's arms and watching TV became my most enjoyable date. Although Lin Qingling always seemed very reluctant every time, but now our positions were reversed. In order to prevent Lin Qingling from crying uncontrollably again, I could only follow his wishes. I sighed and lay back on his knees. I let him stroke my hair from time to time. I mumbled and half-jokingly asked him, did you realize that you loved me so much only after I died? Hearing this, Lin Qingling paused. I thought to myself that the novel was right after all, the living can't compete with the dead, but I didn't expect Lin Qingling to softly deny it. No. I liked you a long time ago, before you liked me. How could that be possible? Then how could I have failed in this strategy? If he had liked me a long time ago, we would never have ended up in that situation later, and we couldn't have been separated for 5 years. But no matter how much I pressed him, Lin Qingling didn't tell me anymore. He adjusted my head and kissed the corner of my lips. If you don't want to watch TV, we can do something else. I thought of Lin Qingling's inhuman physical strength as if he had taken some medicine. I swallowed my saliva. I quickly sat up straight. I stammered and said, "Then let's still watch TV." But the next second, I was grabbed by Lin Qingling's hand and pushed down on the sofa. He fixed my wrists from below. He made me unable to move at all. I could only press my nose against his. Our breaths were scorching hot. I noticed the burning desire in his eyes. It's too late, in the middle of the night. I forced myself to stay awake. I quietly moved Lin Qingling's arm that was around my waist and got out of the quilt. I ran to the room at the end of the corridor. I always felt that this room held a lot of little secrets. "Mom," a childish voice almost scared the wits out of me. I made a gesture for silence. "Little Dobao, why haven't you gone to sleep yet?" I saw Mom being sneaky. "Mom, do you want me to accompany you?" Looking at my son's sleepy face and his tentative question, my heart softened completely. I generously wrapped him in my bathrobe. "Come on, son." So my son and I tiptoed together and rummaged through the room. After rummaging for about a quarter of an hour, my son asked me, "Mom, what are you looking for?" I didn't even look up. "Your dad's secrets." My son said, "Oh." I thought he would continue to look obediently. But who would have thought that he casually pulled open a drawer at the bottom of the bookcase and handed me a thick stack of notebooks inside. I always saw Dad reading a notebook. Every time he finished reading, he would put it away carefully. I didn't dare to peek. "Mom, you can read it for me." "Wait a minute, this seems to be my notebook." Right, too. The notebook was very thick. It was some strategy experience I wrote for the later strategists when I was afraid that I couldn't return to the original world. But later, when I fell in love with Lin Qingling, I put the notebook away. The first page of the notebook was still in my handwriting. May 3rd, 2022. This is the third day I've been in this world. It's really difficult to strategy Lin Qingling. He doesn't like to talk to people. He never pays attention to me when I talk to him. It will take forever to succeed in the strategy. June 20th, 2022. He finally agreed to watch a movie with me. I feel that his attitude towards me has softened a bit. Great, there is hope for the success of the strategy. I can go home soon. July 26th, 2022. Today is my birthday. I don't know why, but Lin Qingling's attitude towards me suddenly became cold. He is really difficult to strategy, but I really want to live. After that, there were some precautions I wrote. The strategy target likes to drink fish fillet congee, and I also like to drink fish fillet congee. We are a perfect match. The strategy target always comes and goes alone. He should be very lonely. The strategy target is always bullied at school. I must protect him. When I hold Lin Qingling's hand, his ears will turn red. He is actually quite easily shy. I kissed Lin Qingling's lips, and he didn't push me away. Lin Qingling is not very good at kissing. I flipped through the notebook further, until I saw a page with unfamiliar characters. The handwriting was vigorous and elegant. There were only 7 words on this page. "Why did you let me see this?" I held the notebook and walked out of the room. Outside the door, Lin Qingling was waiting for me. The little guy called out "Dad" and then slipped away like greased lightning. He didn't save his poor mother at all. I've noticed it several times already. As soon as I leave Lin Qingling's side, he will wake up not long after. "Lin Qingling, did you find out that I was trying to strategy you a long time ago?" I'm not stupid. I can probably guess the cause and effect of Lin Qingling's sudden coldness towards me. Lin Qingling nodded. He also didn't seem to want to hide it anymore. "Your notebook fell downstairs in my dormitory, and my roommate opened it. I didn't believe it at first, but after you tied me up, several times when you were asleep and talking in your dreams, you cried and said that you wanted to go home and that you didn't want to fail in the strategy." The disgust that emanated from him, from the inside out, deeply hurt me. "If you love me more, you can stay by my side forever." "Sorry, Ran. I'm very selfish." He hung his head, looking like a child who had done something wrong. I felt mixed emotions in my heart. For a moment, neither of us said anything, until I took Lin Qingling's hand. His originally dim pupils visibly lit up. I leaned my head against his chest, hugged his waist, and felt the warm and passionate heartbeat in my ear. "Hug me too," I said. He awkwardly hugged me back. I was a bit amused by his clumsiness. After a pause, I still said, "Now, we're even." Lin Qingling didn't understand, but he still firmly confessed his love to me. Ran, I really love you. If you really insist on leaving, I will also take good care of our son and raise him well." I smiled indulgently. What a fool. Story 2. My best friend took it upon herself to deliver my love letter to the school bully. She even said that the bully agreed and asked me to kiss him publicly so he could reveal our relationship. In reality, she was already with the school bully. I just smiled and said, okay, a kiss. Then I turned and kissed the childhood friend who had always been by my side in my past life. My childhood friend was baffled. Thank heavens, I'd been reborn before my best friend swapped our fortunes and beauty. Have you ever heard of fortune swapping? It's when someone sticks by your side, relies on you, imitates you, seduces you, and eventually, they take away all the good luck and even the beauty that belongs to you. In my past life, Tangy did exactly that to me. As the holiday approached, the school organized a party. The school bully, Xingwei, performed a street dance, and Tangy instigated me to go up and kiss him at the end. She just wanted me to be rejected on the spot and humiliated in front of the whole school. On the way to the auditorium, Tangy affectionately came over to link arms with me. I used to think she did it because she liked me. Now I know. She just wanted to increase physical contact to gradually swap our fortunes. I held my books in front of my chest and subtly avoided her. Buzz, buzz, my phone vibrated. The teacher announced the shortlist for the design competition in our class group, thoughtfully tagging each student. My name, Ruan Xiang, was prominently on the list. Tangy was more excited than I was, and she made a move to hug me. I stepped forward to dodge her. She missed and fell empty, yet her tone was still cheerful. As if she was the winner. Xiang, you're so awesome, you're definitely going to win the grand prize this time. Yes, if everything that's mine ends up being hers, of course she'd be happy. The prize is 100,000 yuan. Don't forget to treat me to something nice. I scoffed. What if I don't win the grand prize? Don't worry, the grand prize will definitely be yours. If not, I'll treat you to a big meal. I remember it clearly. The winner of the grand prize was Wengu, my childhood friend who grew up with me. I won the first prize, with a prize of 5,000 yuan, but Tangy always did this. No matter what I did, she always elevated my expectations to the highest. Winning a prize should have been a happy occasion, but she kept hinting I could achieve better, endlessly raising my expectations. So when reality didn't meet those expectations, I felt psychologically unbalanced. What should have been a celebration turned into dissatisfaction and complaints. She would also speak ill of the people who ranked ahead of me, unscrupulously siding with me and comforting me. This prevented me from knowing my true capabilities and from progressing. The longer this resentment built up, the less good fortune I had. It turns out, those who only offer sweet words are not truly friends. In the auditorium, Tangy specifically chose seats near the stage. Xiang, come sit here. It was nothing more than wanting to get me closer to the center. I went ahead and sat down. Well, since you want to play this game, I'll play along fully. The show still had some time before starting. I opened my textbook to review today's lessons. Just as I reached the second point, I was suddenly dazzled by a flash. Instinctively, I looked towards the source of the light. A skinny boy was holding up his phone, his face flushed red. As our eyes met, he quickly lowered his head and hid behind the chair. His buddies beside him teased and encouraged him, go for it. Song Jing, haven't you liked Goddess Ruan Xiang for a long time? Yeah, at least talk to her. Hurry up. A boy named Song Jing clenched his fists as if he had made a big decision. He lowered his head and rushed up to me. Senior Ruan, I'm sorry for secretly taking photos just now. It was wrong of me, he said, quickly bowing deeply at a 90-degree angle. I helped him up and said with a smile, it's alright. How about we take a photo together? Really, can we? He asked. I turned to Tang Yi and handed her Song Jing's phone. Of course, Tang Yi, could you take a photo of us? Tang Yi, caught off guard by my sudden request and managed to mask her rolling eyes with a forced smile. Sure, Xiang is really popular. Isn't she? Her tone barely hid her jealousy as I smiled even wider for the camera. Our school focuses on academics and doesn't really do contests for the most attractive students, but it's obvious to anyone with eyes who looks good and who doesn't. Song Jing almost skipped back to his seat. Bro, you're the man, his friends teased him. Getting a photo with the goddess Ruan Xiang is even more thrilling than beating me. My stomach rumbled with hunger since I hadn't eaten anything yet. I turned back and winked at Wengu. Wengu, I'm hungry. I had noticed Wengu sitting behind me while taking the photo with Song Jing. He always seemed to be there, quietly invisible, silently watching over me. This time, I wanted to acknowledge him. Wengu looked up from his textbook, his dark hair framing eyes that shined brighter than the stars. He stared at me, stunned. as if confirming whether I was really speaking to him. Seeing his bewildered expression, I couldn't help but tease him a bit. "So, the bread wasn't for me, huh?" I pouted, before I could even turn away, when Gu handed me a small loaf of bread from his bag, whispering, "It's for you. It always has been." I knew it always had been, when Gu had started carrying chocolate bread for me since I was a child because of my anemia, a habit that hadn't changed over the years, though I hadn't noticed it in my past life. Tangy reached over to snatch my bread, exclaiming, "You can't eat that. You'll get fat." Such petty actions often have repercussions, like attracting bad luck to oneself first. No wonder Tangy was more critical of my lifestyle than even my mother. I stuffed the bread into my mouth and mumbled, "I'll get fat if I want. What's it to you?" After all, I was anemic and not actually overweight. Tangy had been dragging me to diet, which only made me feel worse. The host took the stage, and the evening event began quickly, when Xingwei, the school tyrant, appeared. Cries of admiration erupted from his fangirls below the stage. "Ah, he's so handsome, Xingwei, I love you." I could only give a wry smile, remembering how in my previous life, I too was one of those fangirls. Truthfully, Xingwei wasn't that handsome. Any tall guy who isn't overweight and dresses up a bit looks pretty decent. It was his bad boy allure that had drawn me to him. People always want what they lack. And I had always been the good girl. What's there to like about a school tyrant? Really, nothing more than a thug with money and influence, often the instigator of most school bullying. Luckily, life had given me a second chance. As Xingwei's performance ended, Tangy stood up like an old madam and announced, "Everyone, please quiet down, and could the lighting technician spotlight us? Wan Xiang has something to do." Everyone knew I had a crush on Xingwei, and her timing to quiet everyone down seemed calculated to stir up trouble. Evidenced by the whistles that began to sound from the crowd, in my previous life, I foolishly went on stage to kiss Xingwei, only to be publicly rejected by him. I became the laughingstock of the school and never recovered from that downfall. Tangy took advantage of my vulnerability, comforting me daily, until she eventually stole my luck and beauty. As I stood up, I saw Xingwei's impatiently raised eyebrow. Tangy anxiously pushed me outwards. In a turn, I kissed Wengu instead. The whole room was in uproar. Wengu's eyes lit up, his long eyelashes trembling slightly. Seeing the redness slowly forming in Wengu's eyes, my heart sank even more. "Wengu, I've liked you for a long time. Can we be together?" I asked. The front row seats were lower than the back, and I leaned forward to kiss Wengu. The auditorium was so quiet you could hear a pin drop, just as I was about to lose my balance. Without hearing any response, suddenly a pair of strong hands supported my waist. The owner of the hands was trembling, and when Gu closed his eyes, after taking a deep breath, he stuttered passionately, "Conf, confessing like this, how could I let you do it?" When Gu's Adam's apple bobbed twice, tears shimmering in his eyes as he choked up and asked, "Wan Xiang, will you be my lover?" His gaze held me as if I were a rare treasure. My heart ached sharply. In my last life, after I died, when Gu visited my grave every day, he kept me company watching the sunset, rain or shine. Just because I had once told him I wanted to watch the sunset with my lover every day, when Gu visited so often that he became familiar with the old caretaker of the graves. "Young man, who is buried here for you, my lover." Calling her a girlfriend seemed too trivial. "Please allow me to address you as my lover. In my last life, until my death, I never let Wengu's secret admiration see the light of day. This life." Under the brightest stage lights, I loudly said, "Yes." We kissed under the gaze of countless eyes. Surrounding us were sobs, cheers, and mostly applause of blessings. Only one overly sharp voice stood out. Tangy pulled me away, hysterically questioning, "Weren't you in love with the school tyrant Xingwei? Why did you kiss Wengu?" Wengu frowned slightly. I thought he was jealous and angry. Instead, he disdainfully helped me pull away Tangy's arm. After freeing me, he made a face as if his hands were dirty and he couldn't wash them immediately. His expression was quite expressive. It turns out that although Wengu seemed reserved, he had such an adorable side. Xingwei on stage also rarely lifted his cap and gave me a proper look. His gaze was still proud, but now tinged with a bit of playfulness and loss. I looked at Tang Yi and said word by word, "Because I like Wengu, truly." Hearing my response, Wengu quickly looked down at his toes. His ears turned a shade of pink, betraying his owner's feelings. He was not as calm as he appeared. Seeing things not going her way, Tangy glared furiously and exploded, "How is that possible? You clearly liked Xingwei." and you always had me help you give him things. I did indeed like Xingwei once, from breakfasts and drinks to sneakers and watches, I had given them all. I thought I was secretly expressing my affection, but because of Tang Yi's proactive help, it became embarrassingly public. I was Xingwei's lackey, yet every time, it was Tang Yi who delivered the gifts, it was Tang Yi who stood beside the school tyrant, and it was Tang Yi who spent the most time with the school tyrant. She claimed to be helping me, holding on to my things. Tang Yi played matchmaker for me and Xingwei. Whenever asked who the gift was from, she would coyly smile ambiguously. Girls shouldn't be too forward. Being reserved is what attracts boys. Xiang xiang. You're not like me. I'm more forthright. It's easy for me to talk to them. These were common phrases Tang Yi would often say, but when she went to help me deliver gifts, no matter how cold it was, she'd wear short skirts and long boots with bare legs. Over time, Xingwei's friends started to see Tang Yi as their sister-in-law. But where in the world is there such a good deal? Whatever Tang Yi took from me, I vowed to take back double. I scoffed lightly, my laughter filled with scorn. What? Isn't the school hunk the one you like? College students, though clear-eyed, aren't fools. My question, coupled with the rumors swirling around, made it easy to guess that Tang Yi, using her role as a matchmaker, had stolen the man her friend liked. It's not terrible for two sisters to fall for the same person. What disgusts me is the pretense of disinterest while secretly competing. Such covert rivalry is really low. I said, exposing her true intentions while she was reluctant to clear things up with the school hunk. Tang Yi was momentarily speechless, scrambling for words, but managed only one. This reaction, witnessed by others, confirmed her actions. By the time she thought to counter, it was too late. Suddenly, she remembered something and pulled out a love letter from her bag that she was supposed to pass from me to the school hunk. She glanced at me triumphantly, then began to cry. Wanxiang, you knew I liked Xingwei, so why did you write him a love letter? What a revelation. Suddenly, I'm the shameless one. I avoided Tang Yi's gaze, pretending to be deeply hurt, leaning weakly on Wengu's shoulder. Wengu stiffened, his fists clenched. I gently took his hand, signaling him not to be impulsive. Seeing this, Tang Yi, with a raised eyebrow, triumphantly read the love letter aloud. Xingwei, do you know how much I like you? Because I like you, I am humbled to the dust, willing to be called your lapdog. As Tang Yi read emotively, the surrounding students occasionally shot me disdainful looks. Is this still the goddess I admired? This is really shameless. I'm stunned. In my previous life, it was amid such public opinion that I gradually broke down. I nestled into Wengu's embrace. Trembling slightly, laughing, Tang Yi suddenly stopped reading. I snatched the love letter from her hand. Why stop? Let me help you. Let's see. The signature is, your forever lapdog, Tang Yi. What? So Tang Yi is the lapdog. I was terrified. I thought my goddess had fallen. I stepped between the school hunk and Tang Yi, my gaze fixed on Tang Yi. Tang Yi, I know you like Xingwei. I also know you've been hesitant to confess because you're afraid of rejection. Always pretending it's on my behalf. Today is a good opportunity to express your feelings. By the way, about the money you borrowed from me to buy things for Xingwei, please return it. The total is exactly 58,000 WeChat or Alipay. Since you like taking my things as your own favors, why not pay out of your own pocket? Caught in a difficult position, Tang Yi squeezed out 3 words through gritted teeth. Alipay. Ironically, there wasn't enough money in her Alipay account. I only received 57,750 on Alipay, the remaining 250, send it to me on WeChat. Tang Yi's face turned green with anger, yet she had to maintain her composure in front of Xingwei. Once I had the money in hand, I smiled and pulled Wengu away. The rest of the time I'll leave to you two parties involved to resolve it yourselves. The situation had blown up. I heard that after I left. Tang Yi failed to catch the school tyrant's eye. Xingwei put his cap back on and, declaring boring, walked away, leaving Tang Yi standing there alone, looking like a joke. She was ridiculed by everyone in the auditorium for a long time. Pitiful. I don't think so, because in my past life, I was the one ridiculed in the auditorium. Remembering that scene, I couldn't stop trembling. Is it too cold? Wengu took off his coat and gave it to me, his tone full of concern. I took advantage and snuggled into Wengu's arms. So warm, my heart raced. Wengu's breathing even stopped for a second before he hugged me back tightly, as if afraid I would disappear. Wanxiang. I remembered how Wengu liked to say my name at the cemetery. I'm here, Wanxiang. I'm here. If you like me, you can't like Xing, or anyone else. Okay, I unexpectedly discovered that the usually non-confrontational and disciplined Wengu had a domineering side too, a gentle nerd forcing love. How thrilling, I liked it. Later, I found out it wasn't just domineering. It was beyond that. He was so excited he couldn't sleep all night, stayed up solving problems, and organized 8 volumes of nerd notes for me. That's very much like Wengu. 08. I thought Tangy would be down for a while after this incident. Unexpectedly, as soon as I opened the dorm door, she knelt down with a thump. My roommates and I were stunned, even for New Year's. Such a grand gesture seemed too much. Seong. I was wrong. Tangy's makeup was smeared from crying. And she lunged towards me, somewhat like a zombie. I quickly stepped back. Oh, what could you have done wrong? Tangy, missing her target, cried for a long time, her voice filled with tears, but her mouth only repeated, I was wrong. I was wrong about everything. Please forgive me. Remember how I helped you at the beginning. Don't ignore me. Okay. Had Tangy not reminded me, I would have almost forgotten. At the beginning of the semester, I had chosen a night elective class at another campus. When I went to retrieve my bicycle after class, I found its tires had been slashed. While waiting for Wengu to pick me up, I was targeted by some thugs. It was Tangy who appeared and rescued me. The next day, photos of me struggling with the thugs appeared on the campus forum. A bunch of vile people started making comments based on the pictures. During that time, I was in a very bad mood. It was also Tangy who stayed by my side, encouraging and comforting me. But only after I died did I learn that those thugs were hired by Tangy. The inappropriate comments and photos on the campus forum, Wengu deleted them all overnight. Tangy had approached me just to exchange luck. At that time, I was frightened and emotionally vulnerable. I only saw Tangy's enthusiasm and kindness, but I had forgotten that there is never a good deed without a reason. It is especially true that when you are at your most vulnerable, there are very few who genuinely reach out to help. More often, there are those who take advantage of your situation to exploit whatever value you have left. Since then, I've considered Tangy as my best friend. When she was distressed because her work was copied by a master, I was the first to rush out to help her defend her rights. But as we fought the battle, I slowly realized, it was Tangy who had copied the master's work first. The master had failed to defend his rights and had retaliated in the same manner. Tangy hadn't told me any of this beforehand. Suddenly, from being on the just side, I found myself being the unreasonable one, and I even offended the master. Meanwhile, Tangy was always by my side saying, I told you, there was no need to fight for rights. I had stood up for her and offended the master, but in the end, she just disappeared into the background. Noticing the camera in the corner, I guessed she was up to something again. I quickly helped her up. Alright, I forgive you. I didn't expect to agree so quickly, and Tangy seemed a bit confused. Really? Of course, go wash up and get some sleep. In the middle of the night, Tangy pulled the bed curtains and busied herself on the bed. The bed emitted a sinister green light. I knew it was the fate-switching notebook. The next day, while Tangy and her roommates went out for classes, I locked the door and found Tangy's fate-switching notebook. It was an old, worn book. I flipped to the page with my name on it. It shockingly displayed the progress of Tangy Seongruan's fate switch, 65%. Fortunately, things hadn't reached an irreversible point. I quietly changed the progress to 70%. In the following days, I pretended to be friendly with Tangy. Whenever I got the chance, I would increase the progress a bit more. Tangy became more and more reckless. She was always happy waiting to switch lives with me. She ate without care, didn't take her studies seriously, and even her glances at my boyfriend became increasingly lecherous. In her eyes, soon all of mine would be hers. On the day I changed the progress to 90%, Tangy's smug face couldn't be hidden anymore. I was really looking forward to the expression on her face when she discovered the truth. My relationship with Wengu became increasingly affectionate. Before class, Wengu brought me breakfast. Thanks. Holding the hot buns, I waved and headed back to the classroom. Wait, Wengu caught me, gently smoothing my disheveled hair with a tender look. The sunlight fell on Wengu, so warm. I reached out and playfully pinched his fair face. Mr. Wen, give me a smile. Wengu, puzzled, still obliged. Wengu smiled, his eyes curving beautifully. I tiptoed and whispered in his ear. Haruki Murakami said, if I love you and you happen to love me too, when your hair is messy, I'd smile and fix it for you. Wengu's breathing slowly became irregular, and as I turned to flee, he pulled me back into his arms. Too close, Wengu's intense gaze gradually took on a predatory quality. Oh no, This is just a hallway." Seeing me avoid his gaze, Wengu pulled up his hoodie, engulfing me. Miss Ruan, remember to breathe. It's a beautiful hair clip. Ever since I've been with Wengu, I've received little gifts every day. Sometimes it's a peeled grapefruit, sometimes a flower, sometimes a cup of milk tea. I asked Wengu, "Are you treating me like a child?" He replied, "What, can't I spoil my own girl?" I wondered, doesn't this wear you out? Simplicity works too, you know. Wengu pinched my cheek and said, "The effort I spend on you doesn't even reach 1% of my total energy, but because it's for you, it lights up the remaining 99% of my time." And, he leaned closer, "Miss Ruan, things are pretty calm now, but after we get married, it will get even more exciting." I couldn't believe the reserved Wengu could be so cheeky. My face turned redder and redder. The envious voices around interrupted my thoughts. "Wow, that's so pretty. Let me guess, did Wengu, the top student, give it to you?" My classmates teased good-naturedly, clearly more spirited after class had ended. After using the restroom, Tangy walked by. She had been quite indulgent with her body and mind lately, her face noticeably rounder, which didn't help her already small eyes. Her eyes lit up when she saw my hair clip and made a move to snatch it, but I dodged her smoothly. Undeterred, she said, Xiong, your new hair clip is really pretty, can I try it on?" If this were the past, I would have naively agreed, but now, it's a gift from my boyfriend, I'd rather not lend it out, sorry. The next day, Tangy wore the same model of hair clip. Xiong, I think this design is really nice. Wearing the same model as you don't mind, do you? Haha. It was just like her in the past life. She would compliment my choices, then secretly buy the same things and flaunt them in front of me as if her prior compliments were a license to copy me. This kind of offense was trivial, yet it was like a thorn, occasionally nauseating. As the switch of fate progressed, Tangy slowly replaced me from being a counterfeit. I forced a smile without responding, and the atmosphere turned awkward. Tangy, looking wronged, took off the hair clip. "Sorry. I didn't think you'd mind such a small thing." Wow, the first time I see someone so wronged while being disgusting. What an eye-opener, quipped Qin Xuan, a model I had found at school, speaking up for me. I gave Qin Xuan a thumbs up. She was recognized as a striking beauty at school, beautiful and aggressive, with a straightforward personality, fitting perfectly the theme of the strong female lead in my recent designs. I thanked her as we walked downstairs. "Thanks for speaking up for me." "Don't mention it. You're paying above market rate. Speaking up for you is the least I can do. Let's work together again in the future." With that, she winked at me and rode off on her black motorcycle. So cool. I watched the stunning figure disappear into the distance. Suddenly someone grabbed my shoulder. Wengu's voice was deep. "Am I as handsome as her?" "Help, the handsome Wengu is jealous, but it's quite cute." We walked hand in hand on Sunset Boulevard, the evening glow scattering a tangible tenderness around us. On the way to dinner, we ran into Xingwei and Tang Yi. Tang Yi, taking tiny steps, ran up to Xingwei and handed him a sports drink with a coy voice. "Ah Xing, this is for you." Xingwei didn't stop walking, took the drink, and casually threw it in the trash. His expression towards Tang Yi was far from friendly, and so were his followers. Tang Yi stood there stunned, and seeing me, sneered. "If the person giving you water today was, it's Xiong, would you throw her in the trash too?" Xingwei stopped in his tracks, staring at me as he replied, "No." 12. I smiled and looped my arm through Wengu's. "Don't worry, I won't send it. The man my best friend likes, no matter how much he likes me, I wouldn't interfere, especially since I don't like him at all." I thought I had made myself very clear, but some people just don't get it. Lately, I've been receiving gifts out of the blue. At the library, when I returned from the restroom, there was a huge bouquet of roses on my seat, facing the curious eyes of my classmates around. I wished I could just disappear into a crack in the ground. This ostentatious display couldn't possibly be from Wengu. I decisively packed up my things and left. Xingwei appeared out of nowhere, following alongside me. He asked in a normal speaking tone, "Don't like roses? Should I send something else?" Ugh, so slick. His loud banter in the quiet library drew many resentful glances from fellow students. I ran out of the library in one breath. "This is a library, can't you consider the setting when you talk or act?" Xingwei smirked, his tone mischievous. "Alright, then I won't send them in the library next time." His response left me laughing in frustration. "Xingwei, what are you doing? You're not trying to pursue me, are you?" "Yeah." Xingwei looked down, gazing at me seriously. It's funny, when I was completely captivated by him, He never looked at me this way. During the summer, the school clubs organized a social event. I was pulled in last minute to help. A few drunk students from another school insisted on forcing me to drink. Xingwei passed by with his group, with a remark, "Good dogs don't block the way." He helped me out of the situation. Back then, I realized that school bullies weren't as scary as they were made out to be. Quietly following him, it was clear to anyone what I was thinking, but despite the many girls around him, he kept me hanging. Tang Yi's behind-the-scenes manipulations, he knew all about them. He just enjoyed having me fawn over him. Thinking about what he once told his friends, I chuckled self-deprecatingly. "Didn't you say you would never like a goody two-shoes in this lifetime?" Xingwei paused, licked his lips, and said with a smile, "I've changed." "Xingwei, do you think the whole world revolves around you? Just because you've decided to turn over a new leaf, everyone else must accept it." I pulled out a wet wipe and began cleaning my hands. "But, you're really dirty." Xingwei, enraged by my words, his pupils dilated, cornered me against the wall. He grabbed my neck, forcefully lifting my chin. His tone was dark. "Let's just be dirty together then." 13. The physical disparity between men and women is substantial. I struggled desperately, but couldn't escape Xingwei's grasp. I cursed in my heart. Sure enough, a thug is a thug, with no respect for others. Why? Oh, why do the good girls in novels fall for these violent and coercive types? As Xingwei's face drew closer, I closed my eyes in despair. Wengu, if only Wengu were here. Suddenly, Xingwei was knocked to the ground by an external force. Freed from his grip, I collapsed along the wall into familiar arms. Wengu held me worriedly, comforting. Xiang, dear, you're okay." Strangely, I didn't feel aggrieved until Wengu showed up, like a child who falls and suddenly has an adult to lean on. I couldn't stop my tears. Wengu's punch wasn't light, leaving Xingwei's right cheek bruised. "Tui." Xingwei spat blood onto the ground. He smirked defiantly, glaring fiercely at Wengu and said, "Brother, how about a match? If I win, you let me have Ruanxiang, and if you lose, I promise I'll stop bothering Ruanxiang." Wengu patted me on the back and paused. "You really have nothing to lose, do you?" I shook my head, not wanting Wengu to get too entangled with Xingwei. Wengu gently wiped away my tears. "Ruanxiang is an independent thinker. It's not up to you to win her over, but I don't mind defeating you in your area of expertise." At school, everyone was curious about things unrelated to studies. The pool hall was packed on the day Wengu and Xingwei competed. The owner couldn't stop smiling, so did I. It was hilarious. Xingwei actually challenging Wengu to a game of pool. Wengu was obsessed with pool in his teens, even making it into the top 80 in snooker. He didn't continue due to his studies, something Xingwei obviously had no clue about. Xingwei was a regular at this pool hall. He handed Wengu a pool cue with an air of certainty. "You go first. I'm afraid if I start, some people might not get a chance to play." Wengu took the cue and calmly replied, "Thanks." Xingwei's buddies started to jeer and hype him up, as expected of brother Xing, always so generous. "I guess this pretty boy will only get to touch the cue today. Ha 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 ha." As the balls were set, Wengu's gaze sharpened instantly and he bent down to take his shot. With a crisp strike, Wengu pocketed 3 balls in one go. The room fell silent. Seeing this, Xingwei's buddies mocked. "This nerd's got some luck." Wengu slightly curled his lips. "Yes, lucky." "Shall I continue?" One by one, the balls went in. Each of Wengu's shots resulted in a ball pocketed. No unnecessary flourishes. He was a different person compared to yesterday when he asked me to practice with him, demanding kisses for each ball he pocketed and showing me how to play. My face involuntarily flushed. Xiang, you're blushing because you're nervous." "It's okay." I coughed lightly to cover my embarrassment. Wengu definitely heard it. During a break in his shots, he looked up at me with a sly smile. "Thanks to someone practicing with me yesterday, I really do feel good today." The balls on the table were quickly diminishing. Xingwei moved from his assured slump in the chair to standing up. Some classmates whispered among themselves, "Don't you think Wengu is actually quite handsome?" "No need for us to think that. He's always been handsome and smart. How come we never noticed before? He's a good guy, low-key, not very noticeable." In less than 10 minutes, Wengu pocketed the last ball. Modestly, he said, "Thank you for the game." Xingwei's prediction came true. Indeed, someone didn't get a chance to play today, except that someone was himself, as Wengu took my hand to leave. Xingwei blocked our way. Wengu shielded me behind him. "I've defeated you in your own game. Please keep your promise." Xingwei looked past Wengu at me. What if I said I regret it? Do I still have a chance? Wengu loosened his shirt cuffs. To be honest, even if you had won today, I wouldn't have let you take Ruan Xiang away, because you don't deserve her. I know you look down on people like me, and likewise, I don't think highly of you. Good at gaming, good at pool, good at picking up girls. What's there to boast about? If you can dominate in these areas, many people like me who take life seriously don't bother competing with you. You don't have the capability to support Xiang Ruan's future, so don't disturb her present. An old saying goes, a conversation can be worth more than 10 years of study. Since then, Xingwei never came to look for me again. Those idle delinquents at the billiard hall took the old saying to heart, seeing it as an inspiration to go back and hit the books. The results and prize money from the design competition were announced. As expected, Wengu won the grand prize, and I won first prize. Tang Yi was even happier than I was when she saw the news of my award. Xiang Xiang, I knew you could do it. With such a big prize, you've got to treat us all to a good meal, right? I pretended to be upset. Oh, but I'm so sad. Didn't you say I could win the grand prize, right? You also said if I didn't get it, you'd treat me to a meal to cheer me up. Tang Yi is the best. Where are we going to eat tonight? Upon hearing she'd have to pay, Tang Yi immediately went silent, but the other girls in the dormitory, often cajoled by her into treating them too, were not fond of her. How about hot pot? Let's go to Hadaleo. What time? 10 o'clock at night. There's a student discount. Tang Yi, see how nice we are to you. Tang Yi didn't respond at the time, but on Friday night she suddenly took the initiative. Let's go, sisters, let's celebrate for Ruan the designer. I'll treat, and then we can go sing karaoke. Before we left, Tang Yi specifically reminded me, Xiang Xiang, it's cold tonight, wear that white jacket, it looks good. I didn't know what Tang Yi was up to again. I asked Wengu to come pick me up early. The hot pot dinner went fairly normal, but at the KTV, Tang Yi seemed like a different person. She kept toasting me, but ended up drinking every glass herself. Later, she said she was cold and borrowed my jacket. The private room got a bit stuffy, so I stepped outside for some air. Intermittent groans echoed from the alley. It was dark, and I could only make out a figure being mobbed. I played a police siren sound from my phone. The thugs scattered in panic. A disheveled figure crawled out of the alley, and it was actually Xingwei. Seeing me, he instinctively tried to hide his bruises and mud, but couldn't cover them up. He gave an awkward, pained smile that looked more like a cry. Did you play that alarm for me? I nodded. Thanks. How about I treat you to a meal? Wengu came running towards me from the light. I shook my head. No need. I ran towards Wengu. Wait a minute. I turned back to see Xingwei, who barely stood up leaning against the wall. He gave me an ugly smile. Xiang Ruan, I'm sorry. A wayward youth finally understands love, but it was still too late. He opened his mouth as if to say something more, but finally just hurriedly added, never mind, go to Wengu, he's a good guy, better than me. Wengu took off his coat and draped it over me. Why did you go out without a jacket? Are you frozen? I slipped my hands into the pockets of Wengu's coat. Aren't you curious about what just happened? Wengu bowed his head and nuzzled my nose. I saw it. Logic tells me if I were in that situation, I'd do the same, but I'm still curious, jealous, and need a kiss from Miss Ruan to feel better. Tang Yi went insane. She wandered around the campus inadequately dressed, always with a foolish smile, greeting everyone with, I'm Xiang Ruan, hee, I'm Xiang Ruan. I heard that after Wengu and I left that day. A dozen people wearing black hoods stormed into our KTV room. Tang Yi, who had fallen asleep under my coat to sober up, was kidnapped. I called the police immediately, but no one could be found. 2 days later, Tang Yi was thrown out of a van, tortured beyond recognition. Tang Yi went insane upon waking up in the hospital. Even more absurdly, the investigation revealed that the employer behind the kidnapping was Tang Yi herself, but since Tang Yi had gone mad, nothing further could be gleaned. And the case was ultimately left unresolved, because Tang Yi kept shouting I am Ruan Xiang. Rumors circulated that Tang Yi was jealous of me and had sought to ruin me, only to have her own scheme backfire. Only I knew that it wasn't just a rumor, but the backlash of a fortune-switching attempt. The fortune-switching never succeeded. Everything Tang Yi intended for me boomeranged back onto her. She had many chances to stop, but she chose to persist down this dark path. Misdeeds often destroy the perpetrator. Wengu has always been trustworthy. After our marriage, he indeed treated me better and better, and it was thrilling, but he had one quirk. He could only sleep well if he was holding me. On his birthday, I got out of bed early to make him a bowl of noodles. Before the water even boiled, I heard Wengu scream my name in agony, Ruan Xiang. He ran to me, pantsless, eyes red and veins bulging. He lunged forward and hugged me tightly, his tone frantic. Then relieved. I was scared to death, scared to death. I stroked his head. What's wrong? Wengu, still frightened, nestled into my neck. Wife, I just had a nightmare. I dreamt that someone killed you with a green notebook. In the dream, I was so weak, I did nothing. Only